Hey, I'm Sam and I do design, and in the video today I am joined by freelance content creator Jess. So this is a new type of video for me. It's going to be my first ever interview, and I wanted to show you guys the difference between a design consultant like me and a freelancer like Jess. Essentially, there are three types of role you can have in the industry. The first one is consultancy, which is what I'm in. Second one is freelance, which is what Jess is. And then finally, you can be an in-house designer and work on an in-house team. Those are basically the three types of roles you can have, but you can also have sort of roles that merge into different ones as well. So for this video, I wanted to talk to Jess to find out a little bit more about what it's like to be a freelancer. And then we can sort of compare and contrast between the roles that we have, where I'm working at a design consultancy in a company and Jess is working for herself. So, hello.
Hello.
Would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself? Give us a 1 minute summary, a 10-second summary of how you've got to where you are today.
Okay. That reminds me of when you start a new job and you have that horrible thing where it's like, tell us your name and something about yourself. Tell
us 3 of your best attributes and tell us 3 of your worst attributes. No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, so I'm Jess. I went to university and I got a bachelor's degree in English literature and creative writing because I've always been interested in telling stories basically and, you know, writing characters and stuff like that. So I didn't just want to do writing. I'm basically indecisive and I'm a massive film buff. So I decided that while I was at uni, I wanted to try and learn how to use a camera and stuff like that as well. So I also did experimental filmmaking and documentary courses on the side. Mm-hmm. So that kept me very busy. That meant that then when I graduated, I was still indecisive and didn't want to just be a writer or just be a filmmaker or whatever. So I ended up being freelance, and that's how I kind of use my mixture of skills now to do content creation. So
you say that you're a freelance content creator. For those out there who doesn't know what that might entail, can you give us a quick summary of what your company offers as a service? And then we can go into how I might be different working at my job here.
Generally, if you were a freelancer, you don't have to do it the way that I did it. But basically, my full name is Jessica Hearne, and so I started a business called Hearne Creative. Via Hearne Creative, I offer basically all of the strange mix of skills that I picked up at uni and along the way. So I offer creative and copywriting, filmmaking and videography and events and all that sort of stuff, social media, website design, and a bit of graphic design as well. But obviously I can't draw and I can't sketch like you. So a lot of the time the design stuff is with associates. Basically, by starting up a business and doing it kind of in the freelance way, it means that I get to have a variety of projects. So sometimes I'll be just writing all the time and other times I'll be up all night editing a film. And it means that I get to have that variety, but all kind of in one place.
Mm-hmm. Great. So if I was to talk about from my point of view, because I'm within a larger company, so I work for a consultancy, and what that means is our clients come to the consultancy for everything from business strategy, brand strategy, market positioning, all the way through to a product manufactured and on the market. But I am definitely a designer within that ecosystem at precipice of ethnographers, design researchers, semioticians, and I'm on the design side where we have graphic designers, product designers, and things like that too. So, and that means that my day-to-day is going to be very different to your day-to-day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, I can wake up at getting to work at 9 a.m. It's a very rigid day because then I finish at 6 p.m. That's when the client knows when to stop talking to us. I guess your life, running your own business as a freelancer, you can get to pick and choose your hours. How does that work for you?
Yeah. So I actually find that it very much depends on the type of person that you are. So when I first left uni, I went into a full-time job and I found that the rigid 9 to 5 time frame of, you know, you're at work between this time and you're not at work in the evenings actually didn't work for me, because I found that if they gave me projects that they'd kind of set aside more time for it to be finished, and if I finished it quicker than expected, say if I finish at 3 p.m, I'm then basically sat at my desk twiddling my thumbs for a couple of hours until I can go home. And likewise, if something kind of goes over and actually you want to get it done that day while you're sort of in the mood to do it, then you're very aware that you're no longer being paid after a certain time, and it's about whether that's worth staying to finish it. And I felt like, I mean, it's probably because, which I'll go into in a minute, it wasn't the best work environment for me to be in, so you kind of want to get out and go home. But I found that since going freelance, I'm very much driven by the projects that I'm on. So if I'm up until 4 a.m. because I'm finishing off a project and I get really into it, then that's fine, and I'm happy to sort of work my life around it that way, because it also means that if on a Wednesday afternoon I've got no client projects to be working on, and God forbid there's like a family emergency, or even if just one of my friends is around and I'm not doing anything, I can give myself that time back. And it just means that as long as my clients are happy, I don't have to answer to any sort of bigger authority than myself because of being my own boss. And that's something that I enjoy, but a lot of other people need the structure of a work environment and a team that you're with every day and stuff like that. So I think there's pros and cons, definitely.
There is definitely, because I absolutely live for habit. I love having a set routine, because then I can plan. I know I can plan the rest of whatever I'm doing around that very rigid plan. So if I know I'm in at 9 a.m, at least I know that that's going to happen, and I can work to that, and I can plan when to film these videos, and I can do everything. And I love to know exactly what I'm doing weeks in advance. Love it. But I can see why being a little bit more free would help with some people as well. One
thing I actually found when I was in full-time employment is that I missed that way that a lot of people work at uni, when you're driven by the projects. So, for example, if you've got a dissertation deadline, you're working towards that deadline, and you've got that adrenaline that pushes you forward to finish the project, and then you'll finish that, and then you're on a new assignment, and that kind of drives you forward. It's not repetitive. And I found that I missed that way of working when I was in full-time employment. And so I think that by going freelance, it meant that I was able to kind of go back to that type of lifestyle, except also running a business at the same time. And I found that I've thrived on that, but I know a lot of people prefer the routine.
Okay, so moving on, we've got some questions from people on Instagram who want to know the difference between a freelancer and a consultant. So I'm just going to list them off here really fast. We're going to do a quick fire round. We'll go as quick as we can. Okay, number 1. The financial security of a consultancy versus freelance. How did you choose to take the plunge?
So that was actually my biggest concern by a long shot. That's what put me off being freelance. And actually, when I first started my graduate job out of university, I won't name names about who I worked for or anything, but basically I wasn't really enjoying it while I was there. It was quite a toxic work environment. And so every day there was that little bit of me that's like, am I going to be fired today? Am I going to lose this graduate job I've worked so hard for? And I've always been a bit of a goody two-shoes, so that was a genuine, something that really bothered me every day. And obviously then I'm thinking, if I lose this job, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. And so actually, even though I was in full-time employment, the fact that somebody else had a choice over whether I was going to get paid that month or whether my work was good enough, that really was something that was keeping me awake at night.
So you're saying that you had less financial stability in your full-time job than you would have done taking the plunge and being freelance?
Well, and I remember when I first started that job, before it kind of went downhill, somebody actually said to me, oh, did you ever consider being freelance? And I vividly remember saying, oh, well, no, because I could never do that because I'd be scared I wouldn't get any money. And then when I'd worked in that place and I'd had that fear whilst in employment, I just thought to myself, why on earth have I not took this plunge before? And it was only when I left there, I kind of thought, oh, well, it's okay, I'll do some freelance stuff on the side. And then luckily for me, it's stayed steady and I've not had to worry. But it's something you need to be prepared for before you take the plunge, definitely.
Well, I've got two questions here that they follow on from this question, but they're two very different questions.
Okay.
So the first one is it possible to do freelancing on the side of a full-time job instead of just taking the plunge off a cliff?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, asterisk. ask permission first, because there's
check your contract.
There's something called moonlighting, which is illegal to do, which is if you're in full-time employment and then you start working somewhere else without telling your employer, that's bad. So you need to be seriously open with your current employer and say, I've got this one project, it's not a conflict of interest. So for example, me working here as a full-time industrial designer, I do illustration work as a freelancer. I do illustration work for Procreate and a few other companies as well. And the argument there is it's not an industrial design product, and I'm not bringing a product to the market. I'm just drawing them a nice picture, which is not exactly the same as what I do at Precipice. But still, I'm bringing a product out with another company called Gantry that's coming out soon. But I had to ask Precipice for their permission first. And if they said no, then I wouldn't have been able to do it. So yes, but be honest with your employer first.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, in terms of, rather than an employment front, but from more of a personal perspective, when I first decided to go freelance, my plan was I was going to work a part-time job, just, whatever was the quickest one I could get for the sake of money. I was going to have a part-time job whilst also setting up the business and building up a client list. And the idea was I would eventually move away from that part-time job when my business was kind of self-sufficient enough that I could make a living from it. I was lucky enough that when I found my first client, she basically loved me and recommended me to everybody. And so whilst I was looking for this part-time job, I was doing work for her. And basically because I was so busy with work for her and then work from the recommendations that she'd done, the job applications just kind of got pushed back and back. And that was 2 years ago, and I've never got round to getting another job. But I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go freelance and that doesn't happen, if you don't get busy straight away, there's nothing wrong with having a part-time job. It doesn't mean that you're less motivated about that. It just means that you've got to be realistic. And I think if I ever got quieter and if I ever really needed the extra money, I wouldn't be afraid to take on even just some retail work or anything, so you've got a little bit of steady income, but you can carry on with the thing that you're passionate about.
Yep. That's great, because you almost answered the next question. You didn't quite, but you almost did. So that this next question is, when you do take the plunge, how do you get your first client?
Okay.
You spoke about after getting your first client. How did you find your first client?
So how I found my first client was a bit of a random coincidence, actually, but it does still give an answer. So basically, without going into the long story of it, I met her through my boyfriend has some connections at work, started chatting about the fact that his girlfriend was trying to set up a business, and the guy he was talking to said, "Oh, that's so funny, because my wife is a freelancer as well, in a completely different field." And he said, "But she's got a company, so maybe we should get them together and she can chat about how she set the company up, just more the paperwork side of things, because she might be able to be kind of a mentor for me." I found out later on that actually part of her job is she is a mentor. She's a life coach. But so we kind of met up and got on straight away. And it turned out that she needed a website doing. And I had some experience with WordPress, website building. And so I did that for her. And then it turns out she had a lot of friends who were in the same field as her. And I ended up building all these different people's websites that kept me busy. But the way that actually I would recommend to anybody to get your first clients is just tell everybody that you know what your skills are. Tell them that you're going to go freelance. Tell them that, this is something you're seriously doing. And I found that relatives who'd literally known me my whole life and had known the skills I'd had all this time only started asking me for work and, paying me for it and recommending me to their friends who were paying me for work when they realised that I was going to actually offer it as a service, even though the year before I could have done that for them. So it's when you start saying to people, I have this business, I'm going to offer this service, you'd be surprised how many people you already know will say, oh, that's funny because I need this thing doing.
Yeah.
So I just, shout about what your skills are and you'd be surprised how many people approach you.
Great. Cool. Nice. We'll move on to the next question. Can you tell this is my first interview because I don't know what I'm doing? Okay, so you touched on this a little bit. This is going to be a super quick question because you already said it, but is it possible to establish yourself as a freelancer straight out of university?
I would say yes. I know that you were saying that
I've got opinions on the matter.
You're quite opinionated on this one, but I would say 100% yes. And I mean, both of us did some freelance work while we were at uni.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously our day rates were a lot lower.
Yeah, smaller jobs.
Yeah, but
they help.
It's experience. And actually, going back to the job I had straight out of uni, I remember when I was thinking about leaving because I wasn't enjoying it, somebody said to me, "Oh, but you need to stay because it'll look bad on your CV." Like, or you should stay because it will look good on your CV to have experience. This all important experience with an employer. And I remember saying to them,
backseat job coaches.
But I remember saying to them, why can't I have this experience? Why can't I have I could get the same experience and more, but with a company with my own name on it, not somebody else's. And that was kind of, again, what pushed me. And I think I was probably just stubborn and went with it anyway. But I would say that if freelancing is something you really want to do, you could take on freelance projects straight out of uni. But there is something to be said for getting experience, because my experience working in another small business did help me just with knowing how to set up my own small business. And that, as much as I didn't enjoy it, there are a lot of things I learned while I was there.
Well, it's interesting, but I would say, as someone who is in a job that they enjoy, I think these past 2 years that I've been at work have made me realize just how unprepared for the real world anyone is coming outside of university.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Even down to how you might share files with a client, or how you might set up a file structure on a server that organizes all your files with all your clients. Learning things like that, the behind the scenes that you don't learn at university. Instead of naming things like final V1, final V18.
Yeah.
That's
final, extra final.
This is where I was outside of uni, and then now that I've been here for 2 years, it's learning all of that behind the scenes stuff. I know that's just one example, but learning all that behind the scenes stuff that I can then take on, or would be useful for someone else to take on after the fact. So I would say, to counter your point, if you can get a job outside of university just as you graduate, or even if you don't go to university and you get an undergrad job and then it progresses forward, I would say absorb everything you can for the way that the company is structured, absorb everything you can for the way they do their day-to-day, because there's probably a reason they do it that way, and learn from it. Take that on to your next place. So even if you join a job that you don't like you say you did, you did exactly the right thing. I was soaking
everything. I was soaking all the information up.
Yeah. So you did exactly the right thing by saying, I know I don't want to be here. I'm just going to learn everything I can and then get out of there and set it up my own way. Yeah.
And also I made sure that even though I didn't enjoy it there, it's not like a sob story or anything. It was a job, and I learned so much. And actually, my portfolio was built up significantly from a lot of the work I did on the side and whilst I was there. And it meant that, it's a skill. I learned skills, definitely. But also I think that it's interesting that you say about picking up skills and stuff from where you work, because I've also picked up a lot more knowledge since taking the plunge and going freelance, and it's very much a trial and error thing. So you've got to be careful that you don't make any blundering errors with your early clients. But you definitely learn things along the way. If something goes a bit wrong and you save it, and then you think to yourself, next time I'll do it this other way. And I found that actually sometimes people are afraid to take the plunge because they think, oh, I'm unprepared. But I don't think you're ever prepared to just do it. You just kind of have to do it and see what happens.
I watched the Lemony Snicket, A Series of Unfortunate Events, recently, and there's a quote from that, and I can't even remember the quote. It's like, if we waited until we were ready, we'd be waiting all our lives, or something like that. And that's exactly it. And I always think, as soon as I got to the end of university, then I felt I was prepared to start university. Oh, you know what I mean? I always feel like, oh, now that I've done it for the first time, it's fine. What was the issue? So maybe taking that first plunge, doing your first few jobs with clients, and then looking back and thinking, what was I even worried about?
And also, I think I had to try the job I was in to tell me that freelance was the right thing for me, because I'd always said, oh, how amazing if you could go and be a freelancer. But I felt like it wasn't something I could do. I don't know why, but it was like, oh yeah, but I'm not going to do that. And then as soon as full-time employment was kind of not what I dreamed it would be, it's my first creative job. And actually it was a bit of a letdown. I thought, well, well, if this is the alternative, why don't I just try it? And then if I don't like that, I can look for other jobs, you know? Because I'm probably biased that because my first job out of uni was not great.
Yeah.
But now that I've worked for myself, even if full-time employment was an amazing opportunity, it would be very difficult for me to accept that now after being freelance. Yeah. Because I just love it.
Yeah.
I love it too much.
I feel like I need to argue more for the case of consultant because you're almost even starting to convince me.
I know, well, this is the big problem, and actually, I feel like I should give a bit of a disclaimer. I'm extremely biased because I love my job, basically. But I really, I think you should be careful. You know, I'm always the first person to say, oh, just work for yourself. If you don't like where you work, oh, just, you know, start your own business. And actually, you got to be careful. You know, you got to make sure that you're ready to do it, and especially financially, you got to be prepared to do it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a big decision for sure. It's something that I'm very glad I tried.
Yeah.
But also, I'm glad that I tried the full-time employment as well, because it means that now, if ever I think, oh my God, I've earned no money this month, I can think, yeah, but I'm so much happier.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like we said before, there's no hard and fast rule. If you feel like you should be going for freelance, go for it. If you feel like you'll like the reliability and you find a nice working environment like I have, then consultancy, it's great. What I would say is if there's anyone out there working in-house and would like to come and chat, because I've never worked in-house before. I worked at Paul Cox's studio, which is more like an artist studio instead of a product design studio.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like about working in an art studio like that, but I have no idea what it's like working in-house.
Yeah.
And at Precipice, we give all the design intent and we say it should be this and you should aim for doing this and this and this. And then we pass it off to the in-house team, and I have no idea what they do with it. So it'd be really interesting to see the other side of the wall that we're giving all of our design intent to. So if there's anyone out there, get in touch. It'd be great to have you on here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. This is the first interview that I've done. I've got this set up. I don't know if it's going to sound great. We've got a light going on. We've got 2 cameras going on. We're learning as we go along, just like you are with freelancing.
Yeah.
You just got to take the plunge. You just got to do it. And I'm sure that we'll be learning from this setup for the next video. Jess, thank you so much for coming and chatting.
Thank you for having me.
Let everyone know where they can find you online and where they can find your company.
Okay, so my company is called Hearne Creative, so we'll link some stuff.
Yeah, YouTubers do this. We'll do this.
We'll do this
here,
because nobody can spell my last name, so it was a brilliant idea to call my company that. And I also have a personal Instagram where I do lots of fashion stuff and talk about being a freelancer. So yeah, we'll link all that stuff for you.
Yep, check all that out down below. If you learn anything in this video, don't forget to comment. And if you have anyone in particular that you think should come and chat to talk about in-house or consultancy or freelance, let me know down in the comments as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch all the future videos. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Bye.
I'm tired.
I'm so tired.
Okay.